Hello. I think we're live. I'm not sure. I'm kind of new at this. Anyway, I'm very excited to be bringing my old friend Geoff Levin on. And so without further ado, here we go.
Hey, Mitch.
Hey, Geoff, good to see you.
Likewise, especially in the studio where we used to see each other all the time.
Yeah, I know. That's so crazy. It's amazing how long we've known one another. I think I met you maybe easily the first week that I walked into Celebrity Center.
I think so. I was a fixture there to some degree. So,
Yeah, I think so. That was early 1973. So I think you were out of the Sea Org by then, but
yes.
you were then you were public at Celebrity Center.
Yeah, I was kind of honorary Sea Org when they did that. I
Yeah,
don't know if you remember that, but a few of us, quotes, celebrity type people who had joined the Sea Org kind of got moved over to this interim policy of honorary Sea Org.
yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, actually, I do. Now that you mentioned it, it was kind of a strange thing. But um, yeah, I'm just checking out the chat. Hey, by the way, you guys watching, I really appreciate you showing up as Geoff does as well. This is actually my first time going live, and I wanted to catch Geoff. He's going off to a screening tomorrow for his new film. I really wanted to catch him, so I thought, screw it, let's just jump on and shake the bugs out of this. So, um, yeah, I mean, when I first met you, you were playing with Jimmy Sferris. A lot of people don't
Yes.
remember him. I
Yeah, just
I, I mentioned him the other day as an amazing musician.
singer songwriter, amazing. I just revisited him. There's now a Facebook group on Jimmy.
Really, I'll have to check that out. And if any of you out there don't know, I probably don't know about him, but I think he did 3 albums on Columbia Records, and he
He did
unfortunately he
one
unfortunately
album, one album on Columbia and three on Epic Records,
oh,
which
right,
was an extension of Columbia.
right, 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 and yeah, he was amazing. I mean, I remember seeing you guys at the Roxy. I
Yes,
I was in awe of you guys. I mean, Jimmy was such a phenomenal musician, and no doubt, if he wouldn't have died, he would have ended up in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean, he would have been one of the most significant singer-songwriters in American. But it speaks to this kind of magical time that I've spoken with at CC. Not that's ever going to happen again because Scientology is just too evil.
I
But
don't think so.
no, but it was kind of special.
Oh, it was really special, and I can elaborate just a tiny bit.
Sure.
It it was such a wide open time in terms of people searching for answers in the 60s and into the 70s for sure. And so the people who walked into Celebrity Center. Musicians who were in Scientology would invite their friends to play, and there was a nice little stage, and it was really artsy, as you know.
Right.
And so that's where I met Jackson Brown before he
Really?
before he had a hit record.
I had no idea he ever went by there.
Jimmy and Jackson grew up together.
Jamie was your bass player, right?
Oh no,
Jamie.
I'm talking about Jackson Brown.
Oh, yeah, but who was Jamie?
Oh, I also met Jamie Font,
Oh, right, Jamie Font. Right,
who was
right.
a bass player who introduced me to another person, Larry McNeely, who was an amazing musician, singer, songwriter, banjo player, who
Yeah,
was
yeah,
Glenn Campbell's banjo player on his TV show.
yeah. And I must say, he was included in the legendary book, 50 Greatest Banjo Players of All Time. Larry and I became very good friends because I'd been struggling to play the five-string banjo since I was about
That's right.
13.
I remember
And
that.
yeah, and then I took lessons from him. He was such a gracious guy. And anyway,
Yeah. So, yeah, we were just meeting all kinds of people.
yeah, David Campbell was part of that crowd.
Yep. And then that was when he was a classical musician and he met Jimmy, and Jimmy put him on the map as a record arranger.
Really, and so that's how he ended up playing with James Taylor and Linda Ronstadt and Jackson Brown.
Well, he
With
met Jackson, heard Jimmy's album, right? and that was David's first arrangements on Isle of You, which is Jimmy Spheris,
I remember.
1971. And when you listen to those arrangements, you understand why all of these other rock and rollers were going, who is this guy? Who did those strings? We want those strings. So that's it's, as you know, it's so much about gatekeepers and the people that you meet that open doors for you, or you open doors for them. And it's still the way it is to some degree, right?
Right. Yeah. Sorry about
So
that.
I'm not reading the stuff that
Yeah,
you're
don't
reading.
worry about it. I'm a little distracted by it because I'm a little new to this, but I'll get a hang of it. But yeah, that's like, it's amazing that Jimmy was such an impressive musician, and I really recommend anybody out there to check if you could find any of his music. It's amazing. But I had no idea the crossover between Jimmy and Jackson Brown and David Campbell. Like I really didn't know any of that. I mean, I knew about obviously a lot about each of those individually, but I had no idea that they had crossed paths at Celebrity Center, which really speaks to what an amazing place it was.
Well, it was funky. Right?
Yeah.
It was funky.
Yeah.
There was none of that. It was not pretentious.
No, I described it in my book as a hippie commune without the sex and drugs.
Yeah, with well, I mean, I don't know about
without the drugs. Yeah,
without the drugs.
Yeah.
No, there was a fair amount going down there, but nothing unusual, just normal stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what I'm talking about.
Sure, exactly.
So, well, let's talk about your film.
Okay. We've done a fair amount of publicity already, and I've talked about it with some other great bloggers. And the film really is a hero's journey. If you're into making films at all, or you just know Joseph Campbell,
Right.
I just never looked at myself as any kind of hero. When I had to take on the mantle of being the director or co-director of the film,
right.
I have studied filmmaking, but this was my first real entrance into being a director. And I realized, okay, this follows a very traditional story. Two brothers grew up together, kind of normal, but they were in an unusual environment, which is the Bay Area. And we got into music at this crazy time, 1963, when the icons were born, like Jerry Garcia and Creedence Clearwater and Jefferson Airplane and Janis Joplin, and we're the kids, right? They're the oldsters, right?
They're
like they're 3 or 4 years older than us, so they're really the old guy. They're the mentors, right? And we're the kids.
We were sneaking in to see them.
Oh, cool!
Because we were underage. So,
well, a lot of underage. My brother was underage, and they didn't serve alcohol, so you could get into these folk clubs.
Right.
Some of them. So.
Yeah, we had one in LA, the Pandora's Box, or the Beach Boys, or the house band, and you could get in at 15. So.
Oh my God! Oh, see, I missed out on all that because we were Bay Area,
right?
And I know LA had a great scene too.
Yeah.
Anyways,
go ahead.
The story is about us growing up. Having success, not knowing why we were having success, just having it because we loved the music, we loved rock and roll, and I actually loved film when I was really a kid. So I was drawing from movies for music for my band, for people, our band, and like we did Officer Krupke from West Side Story. We used to do that in our band.
Wow.
And then when A Man and a Woman came out, that beautiful film that produced in France, we used to play the theme
Mm,
we'd open a certain song with the theme from A Man and a Woman because everybody knew it from the
right,
film, or not
right.
everybody because it was a foreign film. So anyway, so I was the leader of the group. Everything was going great, you know, herding cats because everybody else was younger than me. They were like in their late teens, really. And then I stumbled onto Scientology through David Nelson, New Riders of the Purple Sage, good friend of
Wow.
good friend of Jerry Garcia's,
Right.
and he had dabbled in it. He'd had studied it and trained. I think he was a actual auditor. David Nelson was at one time. So he and his friend Rick Melrose told me about it in 1963. It stuck, but I didn't go in until 68. And that's when the band's life changed, my life changed. I stopped being the leader of the group. I started experiences. I didn't even know what it meant, but I was experiencing depression, and I didn't know even what that was. And in Scientology, that's not even a word. They don't.
Right.
It's
Right.
depression's not even a word. So
Right.
anyway, the film chronicles kind of in order our story and the fact that my brother and I separated us for 28 years because he left and I didn't.
Right.
So in 84, he left. He told me he was leaving. I said, I was sad. And I said, well, I don't agree with you and I have to separate. And they call it disconnection,
Hmm.
but it's shunning. And so, really, that's the story. And in between, there's, my journey uh, was not all fun and sweetness and light, but it chronicles what my brother was doing. And he's a major entrepreneur. And it chronicles me as first a side musician, like with Jimmy Spheris in the mid 70s, and then um, getting involved with some other celebrities. I married a celebrity uh, named Diana. She wasn't a celebrity when I married her, but I got her into Scientology, and then she got out, and she was in. So, in other words, it just goes on and on.
Hmm.
And all I can say is, I almost didn't make it, and
Yeah.
that's. I'm not going to. And to me, that's what a hero's journey is about. Is are you going to make it or are you not going to make it? And I'm talking to you now about the film that's going to be screening in San Jose the 20th this month. And I really believe it has so many universal themes of, it's never over. And do-overs are possible, and you can always reconcile with your loved ones, whether they're family. There's so many different relationships we have, and there are brothers and sisters.
Hmm.
So I think that I'm trying to be brief.
Yeah. I was really impressed with the film. I mean, it's so touching, and I mean, obviously, you know, I it had a I was in Scientology for all that time, but still, uh, and you were a constant for me. You were one of the things that was always there. We can go over that later, but the work that we did together on the Dianetics campaign. But it's a powerful film. I recommend everybody see it. I'll put a link to the film to Jeff's channel. I guess, are you promoting it on a channel, or where are you
Uh,
promoting it?
well, I have just across the boards. I have a publicist and it's social media, so it's on Facebook. I think they're
Okay.
doing things. I'm still only marginally knowledgeable about the social media. Enough to get on there, and that's about it.
Yeah. Okay.
And they're doing a much better job than me.
Hmm.
Um, but we just dropped a new article came out that is so really well written by a Bay Area uh, journalist, and for I think I sent it to you.
You did.
And
You did. Absolutely. I read it this afternoon.
So they'll be posting that article because it's the latest, and I I'm just excited that people who are young, who love the '60s music, I think will get something out of it, and people my age who love that period because the music was so great will resonate with it. I hope it has a universal message. That's
I
what I'm
think,
looking for.
yeah, I think it does. Yeah. Plus, I don't know about you, but in my household, we didn't really listen to our parents' music, but my kids grew up listening to our music. So it's generationally, we were kind of a significant group.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what we did for Dianetics. I mean, a lot of people are not necessarily aware of it. So you wrote the music for the original Dianetics ad. I had it loaded up here. I'm going to see if I can find it again, because there actually might be some people out there that are too young or were living under a rock, or maybe both, and they're not familiar with it. But it,
Well, it was co-written at the time. My partner Chris Maney and I um, wrote the theme, but I think you're right. The original kind of motif was done with you sitting there and me on my DX7 Yamaha
yeah,
synthesizer.
well, hold on. Yeah, hold on a second. I'll
It
play
is.
it. I'll play
It
it in a
is.
minute. I'll play it in a minute.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's cool.
That was just an accident. Yeah, no, I specifically have this image burned into my head of sitting on a piano bench next to you,
Yeah,
and back in those days, there was Intel was doing a lot of ads on TV, and they had this audio signature that some of you might remember, and it went, bump 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 bump, and the graphics said Intel inside, and
right.
all you had to do was play that signature for people, the audio, and they would say, oh, Intel, and I thought we should have something like that for Dianetics, so I gave you that assignment, like, Geoff, we need to have some audio signature for Dianetics, and you sat at the piano, and then all of a sudden you started going bump 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 bump. Okay, so it's a long story about how we had incredible success between 1950, when the book was published, and then 19 whatever it was, mid 80s, and it only sold 3 million copies. And Jeff Hawkins, who came up with this brilliant campaign that Geoff Levin and I worked on. It's just too many Jeffs in the story.
Yeah.
By 3 years later, the book has sold an additional 10 million copies. It was like a big deal. But flash forward to mid 2000s, we're never able to replicate the success of the original Dianetics campaign. So the church pays big money for a focus group, and they bring in a bunch of people, and every one of them, one guy rose his hand and he said, yeah, I was 8 years old and I remember I mean, this guy was in his 30s. So it was an unprecedented achievement in the world of broadcast advertising. For those of you who don't remember, here it is.
Dianetics, America's #1 self-help bestseller. It's the owner's manual for the human mind. Get your copy today at Walden Books.
Yeah, that'll bring back
a few memories.
Yeah, that'll bring back a few memories. That's a crappy copy that I found on YouTube. Sorry about the quality. But there's another thing to note about this ad. Prior to this ad, Jeff Hawkins' idea to just do a text-based ad, which makes a lot of sense because, after all, a book is just text. It had never been done before. The only time you ever saw text on a TV ad was at the bottom. You see like disclaimers, like dealer perp or whatever, and tax not included, or just whatever it was. And Jeff had this idea to make an entire ad where text was the star of the ad, and that actually became a trend, where after that we started seeing lots of other advertisers doing the same thing. So
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I was so tuned into the fact that it was successful,
right?
And then I was watching TV at the time, and then another ad came on. Oh, there's more copy.
Yeah.
Another ad.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that Jeff Hawkins was eventually rewarded by David Miscavige by being physically assaulted numerous times until Geoff finally had to escape the Sea Org. And it's further worth noting that really the three people that were creatively behind that campaign, we are now all attacking the church. So, hey,
Well, I
someone
don't,
done screwed up.
I don't. Well, it's also worth noting the reward that Chris and I got. Our
Yeah.
reward.
Yeah. No. We all. Yeah.
Do you remember what our reward was?
Well.
We were kicked off the campaign when they found out that Chris had been an ex-Sea Org member, and then they found out
right.
I was an. Now this
Right.
is after this is when the campaign was exploding, right? So they put out and they called an executive directive.
Right.
ED
EDs. Yeah.
ED.
Yeah.
And they listed every single person who had been in the campaign, who had anyway, if somebody had been a broom sweeper next to Jeff Hawkins, they got mentioned. And we didn't get mentioned, and we were thrown off the campaign. And then further, they said, you guys can never do anything else for marketing. That was our reward.
It's amazing. I mean, it's what they do. It's such a toxic environment. Well, since you brought that up, that I remember like that they're like a Volkswagen full of clowns in terms of their ability to screw things up. Like I remember the first time we did the infamous orientation film with the lines about jump off a bridge or blow your brains, and the musicians at Gold who are responsible for scoring were just found every way in the world to just screw it up. And then eventually they turned to you. Forget the fact that you've been thrown off the campaign. You were still an important resource for them. And they turned to you for ideas, and you sent them, because one of the things that Geoff does is he scores all kinds of stuff, but he's such a prolific musician that he scores music and then people license it. Like he just has a library of all this music, which is a resource. So correct me if I'm wrong here, Geoff, but you sent them a CD with a bunch of your music, and
yes.
It was just for temp music. Like, because composers will take temp music. They do this in Hollywood films, and they'll just lay down some temp stuff and then they'll score it later. So you sent them up a CD for temp music. And
I didn't even do that. I was just in touch with them. I think I was in touch with Ron Miscavige. We were kind of friendly. And I sent this, we had this really cool artwork that I can't remember. He's an artist, Patterson. He was French.
Yeah.
And he gave us permission to use the artwork. We used it. It was a promotional CD that we sent to other producers and directors. We sent it to Gold. Somehow it got in Ron Miscavige's hand, or I sent it to him. He was, I think, one of the people in charge of coming up with the theme for. That sounds like you.
Yeah, that is. Can you hold on a second? I got to just let my dog out.
Oh, okay. No problem. I will keep talking. Anyway, I found out later. I actually found out after when I watched the movie. They never told me, but I found out when they watched the movie that they had used the theme that Chris had been more the writer on that, but we always took credit together. Anyway, they took that theme that had been written and was on our CD and copied it note for note, because Miscavige heard it. And this is what Ron Miscavige told me, that he was not happy with anything Gold was doing.
Right.
So they kept putting more temp tracks on, like, right. What about this? What about this idea? What about this direction?
What you were doing sucked. It was horrible.
Yeah. So evidently he zoned in on that. This is after he kicks us off the campaign.
Yeah.
Dianetics campaign.
He listened to your music and he said, "That's brilliant."
But they don't tell him where it came from.
No, they don't. They can't tell him.
No, they can't. But
they don't ask you because you don't own it anymore. You guys have sold it.
Well, we did sell it. We sold it to a publisher. We didn't have the ownership anymore. Yeah. So now they're plagiarizing a piece that we can't even give them the permission on
Right.
because we don't own it anymore. We sold it to another publisher. So basically, the only way anyone found out the truth was that I took the score from the movie that you did,
Right.
from the introduction to
Right.
Scientology.
Right.
I took the opening score. It was in a different key. I changed the key so it was in the same key. I took our original track and I put in stereo. One side was our track, the other side was the gold track from the movie, and they were identical for at least for the main theme. They went
Right.
off after a certain point, but so at that point I sent that to, I think, Ken Hoden, who was doing legal at the time. He was another
He
executive.
was the port captain at Gold.
Okay. And I said, you guys, you have to do something about this. We were Scientologists, so we weren't going to sue them. We weren't going to have a fit.
Right.
And I made them license the piece so they were legal.
Yeah,
So-
it's so like I said, a car full of clowns. I mean, these guys could find the most amazing ways to just screw up a good thing. So
yeah, well, I mean, we could just talk about that subject. Why
Yeah.
is that? Why is you're taking basically some talented people and they can't get it right, or they get it right, and then because they're talented people, they're a threat, and then they're kind of removed.
yeah, but I mean, why are those talented people even attracted to begin with? I mean, what brings them in there? You know, there's a kind of an arc of that's built into the DNA of Scientology where eventually they're gonna destroy those people. But then why do they so attracted to it to begin with? You know, I mean, I understand when back in CC it was kind of a magic place, but it's just like, Peter Schless he's a good pianist, he's a good keyboard player. He's just like spent years in the hole. It just,
Yeah, if people don't know who Peter is, he was at one time the international music director.
You froze, Geoff. I'm not sure what's going on here.
I did?
Yeah, you froze. You're back. You're just kind of stuttering a little
okay.
bit. But go ahead.
Oh.
You were saying Peter was the international music director?
Yeah, Peter was the international music director. He had worked hard to join the Sea Org, and he had the hit "On the Wings of Love." He had co-written that,
Right.
and it was, had great respect for him because I loved that song. So,
Right,
and then
right.
of course he made it to the top, and then what's the next step after you make it to the top in Scientology?
You end up in the RPF or it's like, right?
Well, yeah, or you leave, or you have some kind of a physical or mental issue.
Yeah.
So, anyway, there's lots of stories like that, but I think let's go back to you and I and our relationship.
Sure.
Which, because I was working with you before when you were doing commercial projects.
Yeah. Before we ever did Dianetics, I mean, I already knew you. We'd already collaborated on some things back before I was ever at Gold. So so I actually don't remember what projects we worked on.
Well, I know one. It's a very small company. It never amounted to anything financially, but it was one of my first commercials. It was a little company called Subway.
Oh, you did the Subway music. Oh, hold on. Oh my God.
The first commercial. You did the first commercial as far as
they weren't really the first, but in those days, Subway, this is like embarrassing. In those days, no, it's not embarrassing at all, but it's the ads there anyway. Subway at that time, which we all know is this huge billion-dollar fast food chain. Back in those days, they were just on the Eastern Seaboard, and there was a small agency in Washington D.C. that hired me to do some sort of quasi MTV looking TV ads because they were trying to blow up and go national, which they did. So actually, Geoff, we helped them to go national. I have those ads. I should pull one of them up. They're really funny, but they're like music videos.
I remember.
Yeah, that was crazy. So you did that. That was actually those actually were hugely successful for the client, for Subway. It actually helped them to go national. So yeah, that was pretty crazy. I forgot about that. You did that because there were two ads, two 30-second ads, and we hired a girl who you hired a singer,
right?
And then we had a girl like lip sync it,
yeah,
as though she was a performer because she was just, a model. I still know her, believe it or not. I'm sorry, I'm distracted. I'm trying to find this because I think you guys listen. I'm trying not to embarrass myself on YouTube. Okay, there were two of them. There was Burger Baby and Styrofood. Those were the name of them here.
Wow.
And they're pretty dated. They're from the 80s. So I'm not even going to ask in the chat if you want to see it. I'm just going to make you watch it.
You're going to make me watch it too?
Yeah.
Remember when you were a little girl or boy and your mother or father used to make you fresh, delicious sandwiches until you got the station wagon? Yeah! I'm not in the mood for styrofood. Give me the fresh alternative. I'm in a Subway mood. Subway Sub Shops, the fresh alternative.
Anyway, there you go.
Oh, it's fun.
Yeah, I know you and I are getting a kick out of it. I hope the folks at home are like.
Well, no, I mean it's historical now.
Yeah, I know it really is. But anyway, I have to do this. I'm really sorry. It's such a cheap shot. So the other one was called Burger Baby. Okay, so what's significant about Burger Baby? If you all remember Donovan Leitch, the singer, he was a superstar back in the 60s. Donovan, right?
Yeah, Donovan.
So his kids, both of his kids are in this next ad. And his daughter, what was her name? She was in River's Edge. She became quite a significant actress. I can't think of her name. Somebody help me in the chat. Anyway, the Dono Jr., who was a dancer, is in this ad. And then he brought his little sister in because I said, hey, do you know any like 15-year-old teeny bopper kind of people? So the significant thing about this ad is that both Donovan's children, he never even knew them until later in life. And here it is.
Burger Baby.
No, get that away.
I don't want no burger. I sat down with the clown today. I want a fresh, delicious sandwich like the submarines that they serve at Subway. I don't want no greasy chicken. Don't want my dinner from a big machine. I want to savor everybody. I want a treat tonight. I want a Subway Sub Shop submarine.
Subway Sub Shops, the fresh alternative.
Oh man.
Okay, thanks for indulging me, people.
I reckon that's my guitar playing.
Yeah,
that's
you did
my
that
sound.
music. Yeah, you produced the tracks and you brought in a singer because the girl wasn't
I think
singing,
it was Kanga Lavrue.
She's got a good voice, but anyway.
Yeah, she's a good Kanga is a good singer. She's still around.
Yeah, Ione Sky, thank you very much for that.
Okay,
she was Ione was the little girl who said, I don't want my dinner from a big machine, whatever it was, the little girl with the cap.
Yeah.
So she just a shy little girl. She'd never been on camera before. But her brother brought her into an audition. I was like, yeah, whatever, sure. She's perfect. So when her career blew up, I was kind of, it was interesting to see that happen.
So I realized something since this is live. If you can give me 1 second.
Sure.
I just wanted to plug the People album. That's the thing that
please.
That People is actually the group is part of the whole film. They're interspersed, our music and everything. I just produced some CDs that we're going to actually have. We're going to sign them at the screening. But let me just go grab it real quick, okay? I'll be right back.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, somebody mentioned in here that they don't remember seeing those ads, but they only ran on the Eastern Seaboard. They ran from like Florida up to wherever, Maine, because Subway was only back there back then. So yeah, that's what I did before I worked for Gold, and I got to tell you, it was a lot more fun than working for the church. I mean, yes and no. It was like, at least, anyway, whatever. It's like, so, hey, listen, if you have questions, we are going to answer some questions. I've got a couple starred, but please feel free if you have any questions for Geoff or me.
Okay, I just picked these up today. It's kind of a fun graphic.
Oh, nice. Very 60s.
Oh, and that's a photo from the 60s.
Yeah, but the design is the type right off of a, reminiscent of a poster from, the Winterland of the.
There we are. As I can bring it a little bit. That's hard with the reflection. Let me get it over.
Yeah.
There we go. A little bit better. And so that was. We've been working on that album. We remastered it, and so this is the latest version of it. And it's
Nice.
on. If people want to hear it, it is on iTunes. I know that for sure. I
Great.
think it'll be on Spotify and a few other places too. But so that's just part. It's funny because it all came together with the film, is what I see.
Fantastic. Yeah, great. Do you know are you going to release it in like high definition? Because I have this $3,000 high def audio player that David Miscavige gave me as part of his love bombing routine. So,
well, the
latest
thing
spoiled me. So,
yeah, no, I think the latest thing, and I just was reading an article about Dolby's latest high def, I guess you call it.
yeah.
That is going to maybe replace stereo, and everybody's going to be doing the high def mixes.
Oh yeah, great. Well, no, this thing takes what do they call like lossless files, the DSF files. They're like super high bandwidth.
Yeah.
Anyway, this like.
Well,
I was just using that excuse to show that I have like a $3,000 audio player that David Miscavige gave me. So it was just an excuse to sort of show off my swag.
Yeah, that is swag, because I don't know anybody else who has one, and I know a lot of musicians. So I definitely don't have one of those units.
Yeah, I was just looking for the. Oh, here it is. Well, a lot of musicians have these. It came with the $2,000 earbuds. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, made by this company, Jerry Harvey. They do all the custom earpieces.
Oh, yeah.
The custom earpieces.
Yeah,
anyway,
like the molded, right?
Yeah, they're molded to your ear. They're amazing. I used to get all kinds of crap like that, but whatever. It just wasn't worth it.
No, ultimately people are happy with, Apple.
Well, no, it wasn't worth working with that individual just because you got great. I mean, that's not why I worked there, but there was always like,
Right.
He always had to prove to some people that he was just this really great guy. So he'd give you awesome shit, and then he'd be sure to tell everybody about it. Like if you were listening to it, and he walked by, he'd say, "Hey, I gave that to Mitch." So it's just totally narcissistic. Anyway,
yeah.
Sorry, that was a rabbit hole. We're gonna move on.
Okay. I'm ready.
Okay, so I got a question here for you, Geoff, from Apostate Alex, my good friend. Here, let me just put it up here so you can read it. There you go.
We're not streaming. How do we see your brother's broken documentary in the UK? We're not streaming yet in any way. We're doing the festival route so that we can place it with the right streaming platform, which may or may not be a big platform. I don't know. And with the directors and writers strike, I'm not directors, but the writers strike and the SAG-AFTRA strike, I'm with them in terms of this whole streaming thing. That's what it's all about.
Right.
So,
Right.
and how the streamers basically threw a lot of money at the producers who made some interesting content, but the content was bought by the big streamers like Netflix, and that was the end of it. You didn't get any more money, or you got 10 cents for 10 million streams. You get 10 cents or something, and so actors were getting nothing.
Right.
Musicians are getting nothing,
Right.
literally, and so originally I want to be on Netflix. Now I don't know. And if they see this, well, they know what's going on. So I mean,
right. And a
So-
lot of little people are being hurt. I mean, the strike it needs to happen, but it's just like, Tom Cruise needs to come out and he needs to like speak out on behalf of the content creators and stop doing stupid shit like asking SAG if it's okay for actors to promote their films, because that's not being done on behalf of actors. That's being done on behalf of producers, on the owners of content. I mean, we saw this crap happen when cable started. All of a sudden the producers like, hey, we got a new way to sell our stuff and make money that we don't have to pay the people who made it.
oh, that's right.
Yeah, I
Exactly.
mean, we've seen this happen before. It's just,
Well, you and I are both industry babies, to that degree.
I guess. I mean, my parents weren't in the industry, so I don't consider myself
Well, I just, baby is the wrong word. We've both been in it for a long time. We've both been.
Yeah, this is how I know what you're saying, Jeff. This is how I choose to look at it. It's like you and we immigrated into this technological world into the technology world because it all happened after we were born. So we were like immigrants, and then our kids are like naturalized citizens because they never
Right,
lived,
right.
they never lived without it. So
That's true. I guess
which
we're
means
more
we're
like. Go ahead.
but that means we're the ones who know like how many states there are, and who the president of the United States was during the Civil War, because a lot of citizens don't know that stuff. Anyway,
Right.
whatever. So but I know what you're saying. We
Yeah.
kind of grew up into it, not with it.
Right. Yeah. And we were like impacted by each new change.
Yeah, big time.
And bringing it back to the movie, bringing it back to Scientology, they were impacted by all the big changes. And some of them you were right there when the changes were occurring.
Well, the biggest one was the most impactful one is obviously the internet, because that's the one which is going to make it impossible for Scientology to survive. Hey, here's a question for you, Jeff. Hold on, let me find this.
Okay.
So somebody, Rue wants to know, how have the ASCAP rules changed?
They're working on it right now. The whole thing with who owns the copyright and can you copyright an artificial intelligence piece of music? That's going to be changing. Part of that's going to have to be done through legislation. Right now, we've already been impacted tremendously by the streamers in terms of how much my ASCAP is now compared to when cable was the big thing. And cable didn't pay either. Just to answer your question about ASCAP, cable did not pay for years. It took probably 4 or 5 years before they came to an agreement. And when they did it backlog. So for me, it was like amazing. All of a sudden, my quarterly checks were here, And the next thing I know, they're here.
Right.
And that was great. But then cable stuck with it, and they were fair. And then my income was consistently better now that it was on cable. So I think we're going to see the same thing happening. We have to see the same thing happening because we can't survive on
Right.
nothing.
Right.
That they can just have the music and not pay for it.
Right. And a
So
lot of people don't understand that there's a lot of talented people out there that are musicians and so forth, and they rely on the amount of income they make to qualify for health insurance, and there's a whole bunch. It's especially it's also very much true with SAG. People think, I remember reading there was a big SAG strike commercials years ago, and I was a producer. In other words, I was a signatory on the producer's side, not on the SAG side, and so I'd get all the anti-labor emails. And there was the Wall Street Journal posted this really tasteless joke that said, in Hollywood, when the actors go on strike, you can't find a waiter, which is, superficially funny, but it's just really a nasty thing to say.
Yeah.
But a lot of actors, yeah, they do have to work as waiters, but they need $26,000 to qualify for health insurance. So a lot of it's about stuff like that. So people don't realize. I mean, this is an industry town. If I used to joke that, if we were in West Virginia, we'd all be working in the coal mines. But in LA, the coal mines are the film and music industry. I mean, I grew up with kids because I grew up in West Hollywood. I grew up with kids whose parents were on, regulars on TV series, or one kid, his dad was a director of photography and shot a show called Sea Hunt with Lloyd Bridges. And, it was just a normal kind of thing. And there's a whole strata of people. They're not just a bunch of spoiled, narcissistic people trying to become movie stars. They're like literally working class people. So I'm going to get off my soapbox now.
No, I think this impacts all of us. And I think that this technology issue, I think, certainly has impacted Scientology, especially the streaming issue, that you can now interview me and people have access to it. I mean, this is still relatively new.
Right.
I mean, relatively new.
Right. Hey, here's a question for you.
Okay, what was it like as a musician in Scientology? You were pretty much expected to donate your time for fundraisers, events, things where you would perform live. There was never any pressure to produce music for free for internal promo. I took it upon myself to want to contribute so that they felt like I was a real gung-ho contributor, because I didn't have that kind of money. That some of these guys, oh yeah, they're going to donate. Okay, I'm going to donate $100,000 just right now. I didn't have that kind of money. I was lucky if I could donate $100 or $500. So what I could donate is I could donate my music, either recorded, or I performed probably close to 1,000 performances for Scientology. Of those, I think I got paid for 3 out of 1,000. So I don't know what, but when you're in the cult, you want to contribute, and you also want approval. That's another point within this group. Approval is so important, that you're considered a peer, that you can hang with maybe a tier of celebrities, or they might recognize you because of what you do. I got recognized by all the bigger celebrities, and I was very friendly with Kirstie Alley. She came to see my group, Celestial Navigation. She was a big fan. of our group, of Jeffrey Lewis and my group and Chris Maney. But even Tom Cruise saw me up on stage playing. So not that I knew Tom Cruise well, but there was a kind of a camaraderie there that I got because I was up on stage and they were in the audience. And we were doing good music.
Right.
So I think that answers the question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But
Here's another one from Alex. Have you ever made Scientology music, and did they make you sign any waivers? Wonder if you're able to claim any back royalties. Royalties.
I gave up my royalties to the no, I didn't give it up. I what did I gave them? How did we do that? I didn't give it up, I don't think, but we gave them part of the publishing royalty from the Performance Royalty Organization went back into the book sales. So if we got $1,000 in a quarter for all the Dianetics that was running, 500 of it would go to the book buyer, the person who bought publicity for Scientology books. So as far as who owns that theme, I might have finally given it up. I still do see performance royalties if they run it. But did I sign waivers? They were clueless regarding waivers. Now they're not. They were then.
Yeah.
And so I haven't claimed any backdated royalties, but there's another story that's very quickly. I've been involved, I think, and Mitch, you've been involved with some successful campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
One campaign that was really successful, which was called the Youth for Human Rights.
Right.
And it was a kind of a rap R&B song called United.
Right.
It really put Youth for Human Rights on the map with the United Nations. That put Mary Shuttleworth on the map with David Miscavige. And it was a big, huge success. And they were getting all kinds of gang members. They were getting so many different people.
And it got her kid who directed it up to gold to work under me.
Yeah, and it was a jump off place for Taryn Lexton,
right,
who produced, went around the world shooting videos and produced and directed. It was completely dependent on the song.
Right.
And I was entrusted to write the song.
Right. It's a great song.
Well, I was only a tiny co-writer on it. I was the producer, but I was a tiny. My team, people that were working for me, because they saw that I was just not, for one thing, I was not that great at rap. And so they, two of the people that worked for me were producing music. They said, give us a weekend. So they came back on Monday. They had talked to a rapper in Florida. He had done his thing, and they came back with this rough track. And I said, you guys nailed it. And they did. And that was how United was created. Mm. Then I took it and expanded it a little bit, tightened it up a little bit, produced it. We brought the rapper to LA to recut it, which was a big deal for him. And now remember, these guys aren't Scientologists. But I was the controlling interest of that song. So, the long and short of it is I owned the song. I got the clearances. Mm-hmm. I did a deal with Taryn that he could use the song for Youth for Human Rights, which at the time was a private nonprofit. Private. Right. Wasn't owned by Scientology. Okay. That's fine with me. I just did another thing that the public loved, like Dianetics. Yeah. And not Scientologists, but the public.
Right.
So cut to 2018, I think it is. And they're still, And now Scientology's taken over Youth for Human Rights, this nonprofit. And there it is on YouTube, 400 and something thousand, views or something. And there's the Scientology logo. And I said, enough. And I did a takedown on it.
Wow.
And that
Good.
was the end of that song.
Good. Great.
Because I was like, okay, you guys, one, you're lying. That video is not what you do. You're talking about, freedom and human rights, and then you're violating human rights completely. So I had two high-priced copyright lawyers from Scientology call me to say, we don't want you to do this.
They asked you nicely?
They asked me nicely. And fortunately, they didn't offer me any money.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was enough money, I would have taken every penny of that and put it towards doing something that would have exposed Scientology, but they didn't. So I took it down. I had a complete legal right to do it. I had all the proof showing that I had control of it. I had the copyright and everything. So it went down, and I'm glad that it's down, but it bums me out because all of those guys worked hard to make a good song for them. And again, what's the reward?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So there's a couple of interesting questions in here. There's another one
Yeah,
from
go ahead.
Alex. And by the way, Alex, feel free to ask all the questions you want. No, hold on. That's not it.
No.
Let me just find this one. Here it is. So, Geoff, what was it like serving in the Apollo with LRH himself? Did you have interactions with Kate Bernstein and Janice Gillum Grady? What was that like? We just set the Wayback Machine. Here we go.
Okay, I'll be brief. 1974, I get a telex I think it was maybe February, I think. It comes through Celebrity Center. Send Geoff Levin to the ship. Now I'm out of the Sea Org now, right? I'm working with Jimmy Spheris. We're touring
a world-class act.
Yeah, world-class act on
great gigs. Yeah.
And I'm not going to get into that. I had ulterior motives for going to the ship, but there was a nice messenger there that I knew. Okay.
You had the hots for a messenger. You pretty much spilled that.
So, but anyway, I knew Janice Gillum Grady, and I didn't know Kate Bernstein then, but I knew some of the messengers and some of the executives there, and I felt like it was my calling to serve L. Ron Hubbard. So I went. And then I found out that my friend Dan Arbach, who I'd gotten into Scientology, who was this engineer, electrical engineer, who was doing all of the tape restoration for LRH, for Hubbard's lectures, had told L. Ron Hubbard, well, you should get Geoff Levin. He's a really good guitar player, and he could be in one of your groups, because they were doing groups at the time. They were doing music groups for Port PR. The groups would go out and play at a hospital and create good publicity for the ship, because the ship had bad publicity from people. They were in Spain, Portugal, and the Canary Islands. They were going around there, and there was a lot of suspicion about them. This Navy that wasn't a Navy, right? Anyway, so I go there and they put me in a group immediately called the Rangers. It's a country kind of folk group. I lasted 6 months on the ship. That was it. And I had no idea, I was such a clueless person in 1974 in terms of the actual politics that went on within that organization. And my friend Dan when I first got there, he sat me down in his little private studio and tried to educate me about the politics. And my response was to write a report on him. So that's what's my response. He was giving me negative stuff. I was clueless. Anyway,
Yeah,
I ended up
crazy.
3 months helping them with the Rangers, and then another group, the Marineros, that did pop music. We did cover stuff. So that was another 2 months. And I couldn't take it anymore as a music director. Not to mention, I had Hubbard had asked me and Amanda Ambrose son, Tony Strawn, to write a song called We're Going Up While the World Goes Down. And I was like,
remember.
oh my God, is that lyric? I can't. I just came from Jimmy Sviras, who was like a poet laureate almost. And then I'm getting, We're Going Up While the World Goes Down. And these lyrics that were just, so we gave it a try and I failed. And then what I said was, I don't like these lyrics and I don't think I can do anything with this. That went over like a lead balloon.
Yeah, they didn't throw you overboard? I guess
they did not throw me overboard, but boy, did I get demoted to some degree. Although Ron, I know he respected my musicianship. He didn't fire me, but at that point, I couldn't take being music director with amateur musicians. It was, I'd worked with guys like Lee Sklar and Russ Kunkel, who work with James Taylor. These are guys that I work with. Felix Cavallari from the Rascals. These were guys that I was in the studio with, and now I'm working with guys that could barely play.
Right.
And I give them credit. They did as much as they could with what they had. Anyway, the long and short of it is I'm in the RPF now and actually kind of digging it. It was easier for me. It was actually easier at the time than the kind of pressure that we had.
Right. This was on the ship?
On the ship.
So there was an RPF on the ship. I never actually realized that.
That's where it originated.
Yeah, of course.
And now if I describe the conditions, you would talk about human rights violations. Mm-hmm. We had no sleeping accommodations. We slept in the hold, which is just this huge space where they do storage, and there were mattresses that got pulled out. Anyway, I didn't want to be there anymore, but I didn't know how to leave. And people were jumping ship, by the way. Mm-hmm. So Hubbard had a really bright idea. He thought, I'm going to go around and get my PR person, Laurel Watson, to go around and ask every single staff member on that ship, do they want to be there? And she did. So it was late at night. She grabs me out of bed, I think, and I think that's when it was. And it's a simple question. Do you want to be here? And I think 13 of us said no. The next morning, pack your bags. If we didn't have money, we were given money for a flight home. And the 13 of us are on the wharf, off the ship, and going home. That's how it happened.
Interesting. Wow, it's a great story. So, we got a few more questions here, if you don't mind.
No. And then
let me just check it out here. I'm not doing a great job of keeping track of these. Okay, we got that one. Okay, we did that one. Here's kind of a funny question. So, your band didn't let Tom Cruise try to sing with you, did you?
My band at the time was Tom Cruise wasn't born then, I don't think.
Yeah. But
he wasn't.
No, not even at Scientology events. Yeah. Anyways, 'cause,
Oh, well, he was at events where I performed, but he was just watching, and it was more, we
yeah.
were a backup band. We weren't really performing that much. But that was, I think, the 90s, probably the
Right.
90s.
Right. There's another one. You mentioned playing live music. What kind of live music gigs did you play for? Was it for fundraisers, big yearly events? I assume they'd have pre-recorded, edited music. You answered this question a little bit, but she does bring up a valid question about how the music was done in the big international events.
Well, I watched the music evolve, and I was really the first one, I think, to write music for a marketing slideshow. That's how far back we go. There was no video. It was the first positive kind of marketing product to present Scientology. And I think it had Chick Corea in it. I think it had Stanley Clark in it. It had some, and it was slides with audio from the particular individuals. There was no marketing arm in Scientology. There was nothing. That came out of, and they didn't really have much until the ship came, till Hubbard went to Florida, and then all the musicians went to LA. And then that was Golden Era Productions, or Gold, as they called it. So, but I performed, there were no fundraisers. There were no fundraising going on until Miscavige, or
Right.
until IAS, which was just prior to him, I think. So prior to that, there were events, and they always had music. Whoever the band was would perform. There were different bands at the time, or duos. You know, Pat and Pat, with Pat Merchick and Pat Robinson were a duo. They perform. I performed with Jimmy. Performed a lot of events, Scientology events, and the events were kind of not very well produced at the time.
But these were small, kind of local events, though, right?
Some of them, yeah, but some were like the
Yeah.
Palladium event.
Oh yeah,
They were
right.
at Palladium. Those were bigger.
Yeah,
And
right.
I remember we did the first event. I think we were at the event where I think David Miscavige was there, but it was me and Jeffrey Lewis doing Celestial Navigations. We Celestial Navigations did a lot of events, like PR events, or people would come together for the LRH's birthday, or any number of these things. I mean, I have a list that I could look at, not in front of me, but
Right.
There's all of those holidays, and then special events, or and then it got to be when Celebrity Center started doing their anniversary event, a gala they would call it. So yeah, we did. There were bands contributing. You didn't get paid. And I
Right.
remember one of the galas, Angelo Pagone, Leah Remini's husband.
Right.
He's a good singer.
Right.
He got up there and he was performing. People were digging it. He was
Right.
So we all wanted to contribute.
Right. Yeah, there was a community. It was that we all had a kind of a sense of belonging. It's just,
Exactly.
regardless of the fact that the further we get away from it, the more we look back at it and just think, what the hell were we doing? It's
Well,
literally, the further you get away from it, Jeff, at least I'm finding, the more astonished you are that you ever could have been involved in something.
I never evolved. I was 23 when I got in, and I stayed kind of the maturity of 23 and the growth of 23 until 2012. So I figured, oh man, I just kind of gained. I'm only 33 years old, and I've got all this time left. Not quite.
Yeah. I hear you, man. I know what you mean exactly.
But
But let me see what else we got here in the way of
sure.
questions. Uh, well, I do have to just address this comment from the nurse who loved me, 89.
Sure.
I'm actually going to do a video about the background. She mentioned my background, and I appreciate the comment very much. There's a story about this that needs to be told. I'm probably going to tell it on a question and answer soon. Maybe I'll do
Good.
it tomorrow, the next day. But it's you'll be surprised when you find out the story behind this. I mean, in terms of my being able to light it and do all that stuff, I do a lot of photography, and obviously I've been making films since I was a kid, so I have a pretty good understanding of that. But the background, it's a very special story. Thanks for bringing it up. I'm going to do something about that.
Cool. Well,
Okay,
I
and
know.
so here's sorry.
No,
Go
I
ahead.
was just going to make a comment that when I started working with you, I was struck by how demanding you were first,
Yeah.
and then rather than kind of complain about it and the pressure, I went, wow, he makes me do better work. And
Yeah.
then I saw, your whole artistic approach was encompassing. It wasn't just the visual, it was also the music. It was integrated. So I could see that question because I like your background too.
Yeah, thank you, Geoff. Thank you very much. So, yeah, that's good. The money's falling out of your pocket. You know, the money. No, thanks, Geoff. I'm like, I'm always reminded of what Mark Twain said about compliments. He said he had a real problem receiving them because they were never enough. So anyway, but with that, here's another question. People want to know where your CD will be available to buy. I think you already said, though.
Well, we're going to have we will have some at the screenings, and then I think people can contact me through my personal website if they want, and email me, and I'm happy to send it to them. I mean, it's a minimal cost. And
Yeah, I'll add links down below.
yeah, but they can also, if they just want to do a download, I know I just checked, it's on iTunes. So they might find one that they might find a few songs where we definitely have a sound. It's not the same sound as we had as the early people, because we have the lead singer, John Tristeo from Creedence Clearwater Revisited, and so we're a more rocky sound. But if you like
Right,
that, then we're cool.
right. So here's one. Have they redone your music after you left the church? Like they've done with other people in videos like my films.
Yes,
have
they
they
did.
really?
Well, they screwed it up. I can tell you that. And I actually talked to Miscavige about it. We had a conversation because we didn't have all the big studio equipment that they had at Gold, where they spent, who knows, $250,000, $500,000. Our little theme was recorded on a not such a great system.
Right.
So it had a little bit of noise in it. Did anybody care? No. Nobody really noticed. But somebody noticed at Gold, and they were competitive with me and Chris.
Right.
They didn't like that we were doing this shit, excuse my language, and we weren't in the Sea Org. In fact, we were ex-Sea Org. So guess what? Gave them all the elements. We separated them out. They literally re-recorded the music, and the new version was dead. It sounded dead, and the commercials went down the tubes. So there it is, down the tubes.
Right.
After that, because it was not the original sound.
No, it was totally different. I mean, I'm sorry, Geoff. I interrupted you.
Go. No, I'm done.
No, so to just further to just underscore and amplify Jeff's point. So after Jeff Hawkins, the creator of the Dianetics campaign, who was really responsible for for the work that we did on it.
Yeah.
So after he got the shit beat out of him, there's no better way to describe it. And he finally escaped. I continued to work on I did a bunch of Dianetics work, a bunch of Dianetics campaigns. And I was always trying to talk Miscavige into just doing those questions ads again, because it had been years since we'd done it. It would be easy to update it. We could just very subtly give it a little bit of a visual makeover. And so we did do some ads. They never used them. I don't know why. There's no follow through. There's very little follow through with that organization. Because it wouldn't really play to an event audience. It's something that they already knew about. So, and all of the advertising done that I was involved with once I went to work for Gold, it was all inward facing. They were campaigns done to show Scientology public, to convince them that there were campaigns being done. So then they donate more money. But so we did these questions ads, and they cut them together. And I went into editing because they had one to show me. And I went in there and I listened to it and I said, wait a minute. Can somebody just go pull out the original Dianetics music? Yours, I couldn't use your name at that time.
Right.
But, the original Dianetics music that we had in the ads. So, they went and got it because they still had it. And the music that they put on the ad went, and the original one went, and it was really tense because it was right at this count that just sort of pulled at you. And over the years, they would use that music, the Dianetics music, as kind of a marching music for international events. And so each year, as the events became more and more adrenalized, they kept speeding the music up, speeding the music, until it was just unrecognizable. I mean, it was just amazing. So
I think that answers the question.
Yeah, pretty much it does.
And I think the fact that we were more organic.
Very. I mean, you did it on the DX7.
Yes, and which
like
it wasn't a fancy instrument.
No, it was a near analog. I mean, it was kind of
it's an FM style that emulated kind of an acoustic touch.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can still do they still make it?
They still, well, you can get them as software now.
Of course, and play it on your phone.
I still have mine. I still have my old DX7.
I'm sure you do. Okay, here's a fun one, Geoff. You ready?
Yeah.
Rue wants to know if you had groupies. Do you have? No, she says I have, like in present time. I think, Rue, if you're available, I think, Geoff, you could use a few groupies.
Let me see if I can find it. Hold on.
What?
Because my answer is I'm married and I'm happily married.
Yeah.
And do I like to have fans? Yes. And I got to see if I can find this. I think I have it. Hold on. I'll be right back.
Well, she actually said, did you have groupies, in all fairness? So we're talking about, I kind of misspoke there. Sorry, Rue. I was just being hopeful because I could use some groupies. But the question really was, did you have groupies? Yeah. In other words, back when you were doing people.
Well, I can answer that. Yes.
Okay.
We did have, well, we had fans, but we didn't call them groupies at that time. And
really, what did you call them?
Fans.
Oh,
we call them fans.
Yeah.
I was too busy just running the band. And I think I had a girlfriend for a little bit while I was in the band. Other than that, I was on the road and I just, it never happened for me. I always was too shy, and I thought I wasn't at all good looking. And I thought that when I was with Jimmy Spheres, man, talk about groupies. Jimmy had groupies coming out.
Yeah, but Jimmy was, but he
did. But I got to show this. And I
Jimmy
took off the name.
Yeah.
If you can see it a little bit.
Mr. Geoff Levin.
Yeah, I can read it.
Please read it.
I think she's like 12 or 11, and they like our music.
Oh, nice.
So, and she says, Mr. Geoff Levin, sir, my sister and I would like to thank you for signing the music cards that we sent you. They're collecting music cards from all of these 60s bands.
Nice.
That's so cool. We're talking about 11-year-old or something that we sent you last month, and for sending us the people patch. I have a little patch that says people on it with our logo. And we're hoping that you could please sign the enclosed photos so that we can also add them to our collections. They have collections.
Nice.
And so I'm not saying who it is, but so that to me, that's unbelievable. It
means there's hope for the next generation, Geoff.
Well, it is my 60th anniversary as a professional musician this year. 60th anniversary as a professional musician.
Nice.
And I look at that and I go, that's so cool. And that's a fan of what I did and maybe what I do.
And how old is she?
I think she's 11 or 12.
Wow, that's amazing. That is wow.
So I was going to post it, but not without her name, because I asked permission to post it, and her mom said, fine, but you can't put her real name there. So
yeah, of course not.
Of course not.
Of course not.
So anyway, I've seen the whole groupie scene. I just was never part of it.
Yeah.
I never got into it. I won't say anything about other band members, though.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
That in general, the people band, we were pretty straight. We had girlfriends and we had fans, and the fans were all underage.
Right.
And we never got to that stage where we would have had groupies.
Right.
We just never got there.
Because you guys had, you hit what, 15 on Billboard Top 100? What'd you hit?
We hit number 14.
14. Okay. So then the groupies start, you got to hit above 10, right? You got to get I think that's the groupie line.
If we had toured another tour and our second album had done better,
right,
then I think it would have hit.
But yeah, when you guys toured with the Who or opened for the Who, I would think.
Yeah, we opened for the Who, and that was great.
Be some groupies. So
no, we were in and out. You know, we'd do a gig, we're out. Do a gig, we're out. And they were not. They were too. We were around Pete Townsend in particular, and they were just focused on getting through the tour.
Right.
They were tearing up hotel rooms at the time.
Yeah, especially their drummer. What was his name? Keith
Moon.
Keith Moon. Yeah.
And,
I bumped into him at the Roxy. Not the Roxy. The Over the Rainbow. Remember that place?
Kinda.
Yeah, it was a club over this rock and roll, whatever. But I remember squeezing through the hallway, and you'd always have to rub up against some rock star to get out of the place. But
yeah, well, anyway, they were pretty much all business. You know, they were.
It's good to hear. They were amazing.
Stranger in a strange land.
Yeah.
And we were in the South, so the policemen hated us. We had long hair in their eyes. And we were just like corrupt, and they didn't want to have anything to do with us. So, I mean, my brother tells a good story. I don't remember it, but I'm not going to tell it. But and the idea of the story is this big old sheriff, big rim hat and badge, and Pete Townsend was just doing something, nothing bad, and the guy just came down on him. Just came down.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Totally crazy. Well, okay, if we don't have any more questions.
Well, it's getting a little late for me, even though.
So we can think about start wrapping it up. So if anybody has, this is like 3, 2, 1. This is your last chance.
Well, I want to plug, not me, but the album is here. Guess who did the artwork for this album?
I have no idea.
Well, you know the guy, and you've talked about him numerous times.
Jeff? No, who?
Jeff Hawkins did
he really? Oh,
yes, he did. We
amazing.
reconnected.
Yeah.
We reconnected when I got out of Scientology, And I said, Geoff, would you do this for old?
Yeah.
I mean, I paid him. And he was very reasonable, but he did a great job. He
He
nailed
did.
it.
He's a
nailed it.
talented guy. I mean,
Very
he's
talented.
yeah. I mean, just the proof of it is, he's been punched in the face by David Miscavige. That you have to be pretty well. You don't have to be pretty talented. I'm sure he's done it to untalented people too. But
Yeah, I'm sure he has. But
Jeff's also helping me finish off the cover design for my book.
Cool. That's great. Well, anyway, if you watch this, Geoff, love you, and I am so happy that we reconnected as a group. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, the three of
we're
us
all connected, and we were a core. We were a core.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, guys. So thank you all so much for watching. Thanks for your incredible questions. Thanks for making my first live on YouTube a success. I really appreciate it, and promise it's going to be more. So we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Mitch.
STV.
Okay.
And there we go. We're done.